in this together.
Absolutely.
Hi everyone, it's Laura, and I hope you're all doing well. So today I thought it would be fun to interview one of my friends, Tracey. She's a vegan, and she's been a vegan for 11 years. And I thought it would be fun for her to talk about veganism and how to be healthy as a vegan and give y'all some tips for any of y'all who are interested in consuming more of a plant-based diet. So if you're interested, then keep watching. Tell me a little bit about your vegan history, how you became a vegan, how long you've been vegan, and things like that.
Okay. I first went vegetarian when I was like 16, and for the next like 15 years, I basically bounced back and forth between being vegetarian and eating all kinds of animal products. I was in a little bit of denial about what was going on, what we were doing to animals and animal agriculture, because it is such a hidden industry, and if you're not really looking for the information, it's just very easy to sort of block it out or tell ourselves, I think, that it's not happening. And then it was about 11 years ago that it was actually, I watched a video about Chinese fur farming, and it was like so heart-wrenching. And I watched that and I thought, I don't ever want to be a part of hurting another animal in any way. And then it was like all of the things that I had been reading about why go vegan, and doubting for years, all of a sudden they just like all clicked. And at that point, when I decided I wanted to go vegan, I knew that in the past I had sabotaged myself by eating a terrible, unhealthy diet. So I decided that like this time around, I was going to actually do some research into nutrition and try to be as healthy as possible. I actually started eating a whole foods, plant-based diet. And when I did that, I felt better than I'd actually ever felt in my whole life.
In what aspects did you start to feel better?
My stress has always gone to my stomach. And so I've just like always had stomach issues, and I had like lots of doctors tell me I had IBS. And when I started eating a whole foods plant-based diet, like that just kind of went away for the most part. Like maybe not 100%, but dramatically improved. And then there's so much that goes along with that. Like then I just felt like I think I have more energy. I used to notice some inflammation, and I don't notice that anymore. But I think for me, more than anything, it was like my digestive system just works.
You had mentioned that you got to the point where you were motivated to be a vegan and stay a vegan and do it the right way. What tips do you have for people who are not quite there yet?
You definitely need like the motivation to do it, right? And for me, it's just the more educated that we are about animal agriculture in terms of like the impact that animal agriculture has on the animals, on the environment, and on our own health. I think the more we know, the more motivation we have to want to eat a plant-based diet. Having a community, friends, family, whether that's like in the real world or online, just having other people who like get what we're doing, and then like the tools, and I think that's where like knowing how to cook, yummy plant-based food is so important. A lot of people don't know how to cook or don't like to cook or whatever, and it's like if you no matter how much you want to be vegan, if you don't know how to cook vegan food, you're used to eating at restaurants 3 times a day in the city that you live in, like where we are, just like doesn't have a lot of vegan options, then I think that's really hard.
Are there any suggestions you have or tips for people who are newer in the kitchen who are wanting to be vegan?
A big thing is like a lot of vegan recipes have like a list of ingredients like this long, which is awful for people who are not excited about spending the day in the kitchen. Right. So I would say, for sure, like trying to keep it simple. I definitely think when you're making the transition early on, I think using the like mock meats, I think that that's totally okay to do. Like they are not like 100% whole foods, but a lot of them have really good ingredients if you look at the ingredients. And I just think that they make the transition so much easier, because so much of that transition is just about changing habits. And I think, if you use that as a little bit of like just a aid in that transition as you're learning how to cook more food, it reduces the cravings and that, any kind of feeling. Like I often tell people that it's so not difficult to transition to a plant-based diet, but the first 6 months are definitely the hardest because it's just learning a new way of doing things. Often we'll tell people to prepare food on like a Sunday, like if you have like a block of time on a, whatever your off day is or whatever, and to do things like, chopping vegetables and putting them in Ziploc bags or something, like getting a bunch of ingredients ready so that during the week when you don't have a lot of time, you can come home and like make it easier on yourself. Things like cooking like a big pot of stew over the weekend and, leaving out enough for a couple days and then freezing the rest so that you can take it out later in the week.
Where do you get your protein?
So I love this question because I think people often think that this is like this huge obstacle, and it like brings me much pleasure to be able to let people know that it is totally not an obstacle. So most Americans consume way too much protein, and so many of the diseases of affluence, like cancer and diabetes and heart disease, are connected to consuming too much animal protein, particularly. Vegetarians and vegans probably get like an optimal amount of protein, usually without even really trying. Like it came as actually a big surprise to me that vegetables have protein. You could eat like a different bean for, I don't know, half the year or something, and that's all full of protein. Seeds and nuts, tempeh, I love tempeh, tofu, seitan is this like wheat, gluten, and that's like filled with protein. If you're eating whole foods and you're eating enough calories, you're just going to get enough protein.
So do you take any supplements?
We really don't have any sources of B12 in our diet as vegans, and so we really have to take a B12 supplement. I think like there are a lot of foods that are fortified with B12, but it's interesting. It's like more of like the processed foods that are fortified with B12. So it's like the more kind of like junk food vegan you eat, the less you probably need to take a B12 pill.
How ironic.
Yeah. And then can I just like say one other thing though too about the B12 issue, because I think people they always want to use that as like evidence that it's not natural to be vegan. But the only reason that people who consume animal products get B12 is because the animals are great. Like B12 comes from the soil, right? And so the animals, in theory, although most animals are no longer grazing, but in theory they're grazing, they're getting B12 from the soil, and then when we eat them, then we get it. But if we just grew our vegetables and picked them from the garden, we could get our B12 straight from the soil. But because we don't do that, we either, get our B12 through animal flesh or through a supplement. But it's not like, it's not like there's anything inherently lacking in the diet. It's just that we wash our vegetables too well, basically. Right. But it is important to supplement with B12. So anyway, that's the one I take.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime.
It was great.
I had so much fun getting to know you better, hearing your story. And thank you so much for your advice, your tips. You're awesome. Thank you for everything you do in the community.
Thank you.
You're fabulous. Let me know when your documentary comes out as well.
Absolutely.
And also, I'll put all of your links below.
Cool. Okay.
So everyone can check you out wherever you are on the internet.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for doing your awesome blog and everything that you do. So
anytime, we're in this together.
Absolutely.